Good morning and a warm welcome to this week's edition of the Dialogue on Salt TV. My name is Prince Apollo. Welcome to the big show. It's that time when we reflect on the big events of the week. We had a very busy, but also a week full of mixed emotions, looking at the events at the Martyrs' Day celebrations in Namugongo. The highlight was the bomb which went off and actually people surviving. But again, the criticism of what exactly this bomb meant and that analysis by sections of the public, and of course the passing of a young entrepreneur, sportsman Cedric Nirima Babu. It was a sober moment as I saw Honorable Captain Francis Babu stumble in church, and we can only pray that he rests in peace. But the highlight was the State of the Nation address delivered by His Excellency the President at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds. And again, that will be the main focus for our discussion this morning, looking at the general state of politics in Uganda and relating to other events, including the chaotic National Delegates Conference of the Democrat Party in Mbalala, where the Democrats traded fists, and that whole picture shows perhaps what the politics of this country is right now. And on the show, as usual, we'll be interrogating those events, but also giving you that analysis of those major events. I invite you later in the show, you send in your comments and observations, be part of this discussion. Once again, my name is Prince Apollo. It's a pleasure and an honor to have Dr. Gerard Wedehe Wanzala, resident panelist here. He's a public policy researcher, but also an associate lecturer at Uganda Management Institute. It's always an honor. Speak to our viewers.
Thank you, Apple. Good morning, and good morning to colleagues in the studio. Happy to see these smiles.
Yeah.
Good morning to our viewers. We are happy to be here with you every Saturday. And of course, special greetings to the people of my United Republic of Chirinya. We are always happy to move with you on this show.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Baguma is a communication expert, veteran journalist, but now a political commentator, a very strong advocate for road safety. Happy to have you on the show this morning, Richard.
As always, the Almighty God. First, we thank and recognize that we have the breath, the ability to come, the privilege to be selected, so really, God first. Then the viewers and the management, we thank you. Prince Apollo.
Yeah.
Somebody, don't answer this, but somebody was asking me, you are prince of where? And I said, from the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was right, but it's okay. Very exciting to see Jane.
Yeah, but
Jane, it's been a while. I hear you making noise on radio and TV, yes.
Not from Sabakanga's kingdom.
Not my kingdom.
we have a kingdom in Ankole.
Sabakanga, mine. I'm coming to put on my regalia.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Wedehe, the resident, and Ali Bad. He's the one who always keeps time.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Nice to, looking forward to a good discussion.
Sure. Thank you for coming, Richard. And it's a pleasure to have Jane Nalunga. And Jane Nalunga is a trade and business expert, the executive director for SEATIN Uganda. SEATIN is Southern and Eastern
Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. Happy to have you on the show this morning.
I'm also happy, Apollo, to have me here. I also thank God for the gift of life.
Sure.
I thank God that we are meeting again. My brother
Richard.
And Doctor, and I learn a lot.
Sure.
I come to talk, but also to learn.
To learn.
Yeah, and that's why I bring my book and learn. So good morning, our viewers.
Thank you so much, Jen, and our viewers. Like I said, please be part of the discussion. Send in your comments and observations. Our discussion will look at the general state of politics in Uganda, but the main focus will be the State of the Nation address as delivered by His Excellency the President. Full of optimism, His Excellency the President said the economic, social transformation of this country is unstoppable. Courtesy of the NRM's nationalistic and pan-Africanist ideological strategies. And there's a lot we'll be looking at, especially the president's ambitious target of our economy moving going tenfold from now $60.4 billion to about $500 billion in just 5 years, in 2030. That is from His Excellency the President. And before we actually delve into all that, Dr. Wede Wazala, a quick recap of the week. I talked about what happened in Namgongo when the bomb went off. Then there was a lot of debate, and I think it is for the first time Ugandans critiquing the circumstances surrounding that bomb. Then I was also intrigued by the anger and response from the sections of the public, especially on social media, to the death of Cedric. And actually that is what we will look at, the general state of politics. But quickly, how do you make of all those incidents?
Well, I think I will start with the one of Cedric, and of course condolence to the family of Captain Francis Babu. It was so painful, especially that photo that went around when he was receiving the coffin of the son. I think it was so painful. I could feel the pain of a parent. And but leaving that aside, I commented something last week briefly. The comments, especially when the fundraising for the heart transplant was started, the moment it started landing on different forums, I think people left everything aside, the Ubuntu, the humanity in us aside, and focused on the politics of social service delivery. I think they even went as far as digging out past social media posts by the victim, the late now. And the issue was that right now it is the time that maybe all of us, regardless of your affiliation, to demand for better health services. Because if you went to Mulago and you see that the human resource capacity is only at less than 50% of what we expect to have.
That's a national
referral hospital. And that is not any different from other areas within government, local governments, and so forth. I remember when the former Prime Minister, Amama Mbabazi, left government, he did an analysis of how many jobs were, vacant in government. And so they had not been fulfilled, either because there's no money or because as a country we are poorly planning, creating so many structures, so many jobs, and yet we don't have resources to recruit these people and place them there to be able to deliver services. So it was a point of reflection. While it is not Ugandan, it seemed negative, but it raised the issue about the kind of services that we are giving to ourselves.
Okay.
I went and did a brief research. In 2016, Honorable Mama Mbabas told us that we were spending about $300 million to treat less than 500 people outside the country. So at that time, he said, if we, invested these resources into regional centers of excellence, probably would save the country from this hemorrhage of resources because of poor healthcare in the country. If you go to the Cancer Institute, you'll see. Now, commenting about security issues, these are always issues that are very complicated to discuss because as patriots, we don't want to put our country in danger. However, I have observed where cases of terrorism take place, the agencies meet, survey the place, then they could issue a preliminary statement saying maybe a bomb went off at around this time and 2 bodies were discovered on the scene. But more details will
Come later.
come later. Then a good investigation is done. But what happens is that if it's at maybe 8:30, it goes off. Then within a few minutes, a comprehensive statement is out. Put this one out of action, the UPDF swung into action and neutralized the two. Then when a video comes in, it shows a totally different thing. It shows, yes, the explosion taking place, but you don't see shooting.
Are Ugandans not trying to turn themselves into bomb experts and security experts?
Well, I think in the communication, we have an expert here. I think we need to be smarter for us to be believed.
Okay.
You can tell a lie, but also if you tell a very lousy lie, then you put the trust of the government.
So you also still believe that
in
was
this
a lie.
repute.
Richard, quickly, a comment on the empathy erosion in our society. When Cedric passed away, and may his soul rest, the response from the public was of anger, was very negative, and it looked so different from what our African traditional values dictate.
Yeah, okay. So one is we are talking about Cedric. I didn't really know him personally. We had interacted, but I really didn't know him personally. But I know the dad. I know the Honorable Patrick Babu. In fact, the Honorable Babu, we have been on a talk show together for a while. We were on a talk show together on UTV, yeah, UTV, UBC. Yeah, so I knew him, but I know the dad. I can imagine also as a parent. So there is that aspect of the pain, and like Dr. Wiriki said, the difficulty to talk about the dead and not sound inhuman or whatever. Then you have this one, the Africanness. People keep telling me about the Africanness. And so the reaction of the people. Yeah, but you see, I keep talking about anger. Every other time, I say you have a couple of things. You have deep distrust of people in their government, in their leaders. Deep distrust across. That is one. You have anger, latent anger, really that waits for a spark. And it comes to the surface. Then you have the looting. You have this wanton looting of resources.
By who?
By the people who are in charge of the resources. It doesn't matter who is in charge of the resource. If Apollo is in charge of the microphone at a funeral, then he asks the aspiring politician to give him something small. Then he sings. Every time he's trying to introduce the next speaker, he sings the praise of that politician. Everyone is looting. But the thing is, the ones who control the bigger resources loot more. And it's in people's faces. The fourth thing is the impunity. The wanton impunity. It's everywhere, on the road, in land theft, in animal theft, in grabbing of this, in adjudication of what. So you have this
So
combination.
it is a signal.
So all of those things,
And
are they African?
These are signs of.
Are they African? Because people tell me about an African. So are all of those things African? So why do we want to have Africanism on one side and Africanism not on the other side? If we are going to have Africanism, then Africanism must be heard across.
Any comment about the analysis of the bomb and the security
You see,
situation?
You see, communication is a very interesting thing. You can be telling a lie and you tell it well, and it is believed as the truth. You can also be telling the truth and you tell it poorly. And it comes out as a lie.
What was the case?
So I don't want to claim that I know the truth. No. But what I know is in communication. You can either tell the truth and tell it in a clumsy and lousy way and it looks like a lie. You can conversely have a lie and tell it so smoothly and so smartly and it comes out the truth. So in this case, I think whatever information, whether lie or truth, was delivered so clumsily that it was not going to fly.
Thank you. And Jane, we Africans have that empathy towards the vulnerable, the grieving, but looks like there is empathy erosion in our society, and it is, I don't know if it is growing. Others think that this is for a section, a smaller section of people who are on internet, who then propagate the noise, and possibly it's not, it can't be a reflection of public opinion.
I think it's a reflection of public opinion, and I agree to what Richard is saying. There is an erosion of all those values which we had as Africans, Ubuntu, because in the African culture, even if you were enemies, you have to go for value. You have to say, sorry, even if you are enemies. But you see, increasingly, I was looking at what happened, messages going around when Cedric died. But also remember those who fought Muria Gonja, the former IGG. She's now a Supreme Judge. When she lost her husband, and you could see the messages, a lot of bitterness. And everybody was saying that if you can cry, what about others? Because she was saying she moved from Zambia, then she went to Mulago.
From IHK to Zambia, then
to Mulago. The services were so poor. So everybody was saying, even the rich cry, And I remember some people also brought out to that case because she adjudicated over a case of Lubowa. Lubowa, and people were saying, Lubowa, there's something wrong. And she dismissed it that government can invest wherever they want. So people were bringing that one back. And that's really very, very un-African. Before even somebody is buried, people are crying and people are hitting back. But it shows the state of affairs where we are. And I was, Richard, what he's saying, on one hand, there's a lot of impunity, especially for the weak people. That's the only weapon they have, hitting back. When the rich get into problems, they say, you're also crying. We remind you. It reminds me of this song. It's Kadongo Kam song that Abagaga Bantu me, hitting back against each other. The Abagaga sent him, and the poor people were also hitting back. This is where we are, and for me, I think it's not a good place to be as a country because it determines so many things. The way we are voting, the issue of governance, the resource management. It's not. We are not in a good place.
Thank you so much, Jane Nalunga and Richard. Dr. Wanzara are in the studios, and now we kick off the big debate, looking at several issues, but generally the state of politics in this country, but specifically the State of the Nation address. President MUSEVENI delivered on Thursday the State of the Nation address, And the president is very optimistic of our economy and socio-economic transformation of the population. He emphasized, he reiterated that the economy is unstoppable. The economy is very strong. Currently, the size of the economy is at, he said, by the end of June, it will be at 60.4 billion US dollars. And it is growing at, is it 6.3%? And he says it is projected to grow at 7%. And again, he says, he quotes the statistic from the IMF that Uganda is among the number 7 or among the 7 fastest growing economies in the whole world. I think that's a very that's a very impressive position to be if we are to go by the president's address. I will quickly want to hear from you, Jane, and we'll be later also interrogating this ambitious strategy of the NRM government to have the economy at 500 billion US dollars just in 5 years, according to the president. What is your general take from the president's address?
Okay, my general take, Apollo, and thank you so much for that, the bringing out all those key points about the SONA, the State of the Nation address. First of all, I would like to commend the president for making that address annually, because SONA is an accountability.
Yeah.
He's accounting to us.
Sure.
You know, we before we go inside how it's done, how it is, but he has been able to give us that accountability. So we I think it's really important to appreciate that.
Sure.
That he has been able to.
And this time round, the address was a bit, I don't know, you'll tell us, Gerard, elaborate. On security, he gave time security, he gave time the economy, he also gave time the health, education, those sectors were addressed individually, which
is also really good. But going back to the whole issue of accountability, it's very, very important that, and that's what we call the social contract, that we put you in power, but you have to account to us. You know, so SONA is that accountability mechanism, and it's really important that we appreciate that. The issue of being unstoppable. You can't stop an economy, whether it's going backwards or forward or sideways, it has to move, you know. So unstoppable in which direction? We need to be clear about that. But maybe my take on the optimism is good, but what I want also to say is that when an economy is, when we say GDP, we are growing, the fastest growing. We need to consider how we can be able to translate that into improved livelihoods. Do people have resources in their pockets? Is there medicine in the hospitals? Is there education okay? But we concentrate so much on GDP. And you know, GDP is the total of goods and services in an economy, you know. So maybe it's in a few hands, maybe it's in areas where they don't offer jobs and employment to the people. You know, there is what we call jobless growth, which we have. So the economy is growing, but there are no jobs. You know, so we need to consider that if the economy is growing, which sectors are growing?
That is what I wanted you to help us with. Because if the economy is growing and at a rate, like he said, I hope there must be indicators on the ground. Are there those indicators to prove that indeed the economy is robust, it is growing at that rate?
Okay, sometimes when you say the economy is growing, and it can be true, the goods and services, all of them can be able to come up to that amount of money. And that gross, if you have 1 shilling and you get another one, Doctor, what gross is that? You have 1 shilling, you get another shilling.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But somebody who has 1 billion gets maybe 500,000. The gross is very little. So that's where we are as Uganda. So when we say we are the fastest, it doesn't mean we are not poor. Uganda is a poor country. And when you look at our indicators, for example, look at the indebtedness, when you
Amongst the population or the country, indebtedness?
By the way, at both levels, the people themselves are indebted. All of us here, we can be in a middle class, but we are just a paycheck away, I have been talking to friends. They have children, good schools, but if the moment maybe they break a leg and they are in hospital for a month,
they slide back into poverty.
And we start harambe for the children and for food. You can't call that economy resilient. So, and that's at a personal level. But when you go at the national level, you look at our budget, 72 trillion. Of that, we are just going to collect 32 trillion. The rest we are borrowing. But of the 32 trillion which we have collected, almost 80% is going to go into debt servicing and debt repayment. What does that show? That we are constantly in debt. We are in debt trap. We are borrowing to pay. And our borrowing has also changed because we are borrowing now more from banks. Standard Chartered Bank, Stanbic Bank, like you and me. The costs are so high. Those are what we call non-concessional loans. So that we are digging a deeper hole. And these are issues which we need to look at as indicators.
Trying to fill a hole, we are digging another deeper hole.
Because you see, what I want us to see, it isn't that I'm undermining the president, the optimism. There are people who say we are being pessimistic, we need to be optimistic. But if you want to move from one level to another, Apollo, even in your daily life, you have to look at your reality.
Yeah, but the president, like I said, this time, he comes with the statistics, showing how household incomes has improved across the country and how actually government has rolled out projects to help even the 33% who are still trapped into subsistence economy. And he also talks about the prospects. He gives the prospects of oil, industrialization, creating jobs.
Yeah, because you see, Apollo,
he has a reason to be optimistic.
We have to have reason, but this is how it was. You go back and look at the SONA for last year and the other year, and we have continued being optimistic. But there are times, and that's what we are talking about, the disillusionment, the apathy, that you promise, but things sometimes are not working out. And I have also given you figures, the reality where we are. Another reality is that we are running a trade deficit. We export, in fact, when you look at his speech, they talk about what we are exporting. Gold, coffee, cocoa beans. Those are the top 3. Still raw materials.
But he made he issued the directive. No more exporting of raw materials.
But you tell me, what are you going to do with coffee if you don't export raw materials? Coffee, cocoa beans.
Yeah, he talks about gold and minerals.
What are you going to do with cocoa? What are you going to do if you say we are not sending raw coffee? What are you going to do?
Agro-industrialization.
But what are you going to do with coffee?
Processing plant in Tungamo.
And you process it. You tell me, you process it, where are you going to sell it? Let me tell you, when you you know, European Union, for example, they tell us bring everything but arms, but they don't tell us to bring value-added products. The moment you add value, the taxes will go up.
Oh.
They will go up. And those are things we have been talking about at the global level, that you want to keep us as raw commodity export earners, you know. So what I would have liked to see in that optimism, that for coffee, we are going to look at other value chains of coffee. For example, specialty coffee. We can sell our coffee as specialty coffee. We
That is
brand
what?
it, specialty coffee. You brand it, branding it the way we are producing it. It's an agroforestry plan,
Yeah.
you know, crop and all that. We can be able to do oil, body oil from our coffee. We can be able to do scrubs from our coffee. You know, so
Are we not moving in that direction?
I don't see that.
Oh.
Since how many years when the president has been saying agro-industrialization. So today, it's impractical and it can't work to say don't send
Raw materials.
and we are going to continue.
Thank you, Jen. And Dr. Wanzala, you listened to the head of state, and like I said, his address was full of optimism. And I reflect on last year's State of the Nation address when the president said and declared that Uganda is now a lower middle income, no question. But this time round, he says it and he reaffirms it. We are in middle income and we are unstoppable.
Thank you very much, Apple. I think let me first talk about the optimism. We all live on hope. If you don't have hope, then you don't have a reason to live. What are you living for? So as a head of state, I don't expect him to come to Kololo and begin crying to us. No, if a father cries in the house, then all the people lose hope, and that's the end of the family. So I commend him in that he can be able to stand firm and show the optimism. But I'll look at a number of issues. One, I think the key issue he started with, which is almost continuous, is the issue of ideology. He said as NRM, he stands with democracy, Pan-Africanism, patriotism, and socio-economic transformation.
Those are the four
Now,
principles.
he said these are four principles are the ones that are driving the country forward. But again, in his speech, he decries that he's working with many people who do not understand the original ideology of the
He
NRM.
even say there are saboteurs within the NRM.
Exactly. Actually, this time he did not spend, while he talked about negative political activism, he dwelt more on the internal. He mentioned internal political saboteurs in NRM. He also mentioned the saboteurs within the army. He did not elaborate how the army is having these saboteurs. But I think that already shows some pessimism, that while he may believe in this NRM ideology, believe in what he intends to do in this period of time, he is not very sure, because internally there are these. So my question is, these internal saboteurs, what are you doing about it? Because they're all around you every day. You can see that when they see the money, the smiles are from ear to ear. But when it comes to maybe state construction, they are not involved. That's number one. Now, the other issue, I will pick out the issue of democracy. There are many questions right now whether our democracy is moving forward or going back. Because if we don't strengthen our democracy, including building trust in democratic institutions such as parliament, such as the inspectorate of government, anti-corruption bodies, PPDA, and others, so that they are able to deliver the services to the people, then your optimism may be a dream, but may not be achievable. The president is so optimistic about the growth figures. Actually saying we are projected to grow at 6.3, but then we will grow at 7%. And he goes ahead to say that by 2030, our economy will have jumped from 60 billion US dollars to about 158 billion. This is in 4 years.
Yes.
That one is a very big doubt, because I have been a follower of this government. If 1986, the size of our economy was 3.9 billion US dollars. 3.9 billion US dollars in 1986. Today, we are projected to be at 60 billion.
Yeah.
And then he says it has grown 15 times in 40 years. So how do you convince me that in 4 years, even if we are all singing about elimination of poverty, SDGs and so forth, in 4 years we cannot achieve a growth of 150 up to 150 billion US dollars, unless we are growing at double digit above. Yes, but I'm not seeing us jumping from the current growth figures per annum to that, to above 10%. Even with the oil, you see, the oil economy is always hyped. It brings a lot of optimism, but depending on how you have managed it, it may be your answer, like the way the Baganda call it, the feathers of white ants, you know, because you go, economists can tell, you go to Ghana, when they discovered the oil, the speed, they went on a borrowing spree, just like the way we are doing. So by the time the oil started flowing, they were paying huge debts, And so you have seen the trouble with the Ghanaian cedi, how the money has depreciated in Ghana, in areas where they expected to transform people from fishing to oil economy. The fishing has been destroyed, where the oil, because for them, their oil is at the cost, but they're also not even earning money from the oil. So we have to be very careful about. And now if you talk about having an economy of 500 billion US dollars
in 2030,
that's about the economy of South Africa in 2040. I think
4030.
No, $500 billion in 2040.
Okay.
$158 billion in 2030. So in 2030, we're supposed to more than double our economy. Then in 2040, we will have tripled it.
In 10 years, from 2030 to 2040. Yeah.
So honestly, I'm not seeing that. If you look at tourism is as moody as stocks. People who deal in shares, in trading shares and so forth. If shares here, like Trump is fighting with Elon Musk today, you saw Elon Musk's income dropped by 14% in hours, the share of Tesla. So if we look at tourism, the moment you see that there's electoral violence, you see that one tourist has been kidnapped in Queen Elizabeth. If you don't invest strategically in infrastructure, so that people spend less time on the road, and then you will not achieve the growth figures that you intend to. The other issue I wanted to look...
So you're knocking off the prospects in oil, the prospects in tourism also has other factors.
Yeah, they all have potential, great potential, but there are factors that determine the impact. Now, you will not say we are unstoppable. How about if other factors come in? Then you will be stopped by those factors. That is why for us in economics, we usually say, ceteris paribus, other factors remaining constant. That when you are planning, you have to hold some other factors constant, but you know that in your mind that they may happen and influence the outcome. Now, looking at the programs we are running, because one issue that the president dwelt in is that poverty projections, the poverty level, people living below the poverty line, have reduced to 16%. Which he says is a big performance beyond the 18% they wanted to achieve. Thank you. But what are we struggling with? She mentioned it. One, an economic growth without substantial jobs. Income inequality is expanding because the looting is on. You find some looters have too much. And maybe find where to clean this money, And then you find people who cannot find a meal.
Are there
No.
indicators that income inequality is real in our economy?
Absolutely. Look at the Bank of Uganda statistics. Only less than 1% of Ugandans earn 1 million shillings. Yes. So less than 1% earn up to 1 million and above. The rest, 90%, earn below 1 million.
Oh.
Bank of Uganda statistics. What does it show? Income inequality. Go and look at statistics from NSSF, the contributions. How many people have, what percentage of people have 10 million and above? 2%.
Are
The
those,
rest
are those
not.
all factors that may affect the dream, the 500 ambitious dream?
Yeah, having a big, great economy with very many impoverished people who depend on a small class can be a problem.
Yeah.
Can be a problem for the economy. Now, I also want to pose a question. She mentioned we have been growing at 7% from around 1990s, 7% per annum. Why is it that in URA has failed to achieve its target on revenue? We are still at 14. I think the target now is 14% of the GDP. But we have been stagnating, yes, around
Revenue, local revenue
between
collections.
10 and 12% for a very long time. So it means that while the economy is growing, we are not seeing it in the revenue basket. And that's why she said we are projected to collect 32 trillion shillings from our local generated revenue, but we are paying 27 trillion in the debt service.
Didn't he speak about a target to collect around 39 trillion? And he outlined the strategies. He said, he talked about overcoming corruption in URA, something like that, then avoiding and eliminating tax evasion. He outlined some few strategies.
I think he rightly
local
points
revenue
out,
collections.
he rightly points out corruption and tax evasion, but also the economy should be able to contribute to revenue growth. We may be having a very big population that is not paying tax.
Yeah.
Just because we think they are active in the economy, but they are not substantially active in the economy. We have a very heavy informal sector. And then these small, businesses, chapati, selling, water. So if you have a very big informal sector, it is hard for you to collect tax.
So generally from the State of the Nation address, you say, well, the head of state is right to be optimistic, but there are other factors.
He needs to be right. And there is something that I saw in his State of the Nation.
Consider.
He talks about FDI, foreign direct investment. Yeah, the figures are impressive. If in such a small economy every year you attract about $4 billion US. But also he mentions now the leading is Netherlands, and then we have France, and then we have UK, UAE. So it means that we need in a diplomatic circle to strengthen relations with those countries. But instead, politically, we are trying to hurt relations with some of them, especially Europe. We need to harness that relationship. So for me, I saw the number. Uganda has great potential, but we need probably to change the way we are playing our cards.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Wanzala. We have 7 minutes to the break. Richard, you can send in your comments and observations. We are still interrogating the optimistic address from His Excellency the President, and especially looking at that prospect that in 10 years from now, the economy would have jumped from 60.4, the projection, to 500 billion US dollars. Richard, usually when the president is coming to address the nation, there are those negative. There's that I don't know if I call it pessimism or what. they are saying now he's going to regurgitate the old address. There's nothing new. There's this, and actually that's the reason why the opposition walked out. They didn't actually walk out. They didn't attend. Did you find anything new and good about this address?
Okay. I frankly feel like I should donate my 7 minutes to the break so that we can have a little longer time on our bananas. They are very nice bananas which you are serving. I am also quarreling again. I'm quarreling directly again that you are not buying Ugandan coffee. I like coffee which we are drinking, but you are not buying Ugandan coffee.
Yeah, that is an issue, Jane.
Yeah,
has
that's what I
raised
quarrel
over
every
time.
day. I don't know who purchases coffee at Salt Media, but I am quarreling openly.
Openly.
Yeah. This is, how can we reach 500 billion if you are not buying Uganda?
Exactly.
This is serious.
We are also saboteurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must be examined. And so, Apollo, I would frankly, on the question of the state of the state, I would really be happy to donate my minutes. We go and eat our bananas and come back. Yeah.
It's like you gave up on
No, not giving up.
the issues of your chairman.
No, you see, because I sometimes I correctly predict my chairman.
Sure.
Yeah, I correctly sometimes, and usually on the question of State of the Nation address and budget speech, I feel like I fairly correctly predict him properly. So I and like I told you, since my days sometimes as his sound man or whatever it is, sometimes recording him, going to cover him, and I would wait when I would be very happy when he would remove the spectacles, the specs when he's talking. Then that's when I would.
That's when he speaks his mind.
So if you look, if you see, if you hear, you go back to the recording. The times he said, when he goes to Uganda. That is, then you know that's where the gist is.
Yeah.
Of the
You don't believe in his
No, I'm not talking about
documents.
belief. No, I'm not about belief. It's not about belief. This is about observation over time. And you see, I keep saying I'm Musevenist. I really pay attention to President Museveni because for me, I think he's a phenomenon as an individual. Yes, I think he's a phenomenon. I think we will write a lot of things about him. So that's why I pay attention to the times of the things which we are not reading. I also have these challenges of going back to 1986 and what was, and so I was waiting. For example, one of the things that I felt not disappointed that it was not said was because see, the State of the Nation is what do you sell and what do you buy? Yes. That, in my view, gives you some picture of where you are.
But the balance of trade.
But from a communication point of view, it was very clever, I think, to only talk about what we sell. Yeah, I think that was very clever. Talk about what we sell, don't talk about what we buy. Because then you spoil. Yeah. Then you spoil the image you are projecting. So I think the State of the Nation address has over the years been an image polishing. Yeah, an image polishing exercise. And then, of course, if you look, we come and debate, and we talk about the same issues. For example, I can tell you that in the State of the Nation address and in the budget, there are some roads which will appear for 5 consecutive times.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you can go check the script. Yeah. So I would predict there are these roads, they will appear in this State of the Nation address and this budget. 2020, 2020.
But I think that
I can tell you that there are some flagship projects that will appear.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the first 2 or 3 years, they will appear being talked about. In the next year, they will be commissioned. And then for the next 3 years after the commissioning, they will not be started. You know. So Richard, you know, so I don't want to be negative. No. And I am very optimistic, certainly, that this country, like I always say, whether we are here or not, this country is going to be here. in some form or the other. But to swallow, they call it what? Who can think, whatever it is. That Werihe's country is going to move from 50 billion, which is the realistic thing where we are probably slightly less, to 500 billion.
In 10 years.
And God might give us 10 years. I think then I am sorry. If I swallow that one, I would be. I think they should deny me dinner at home.
Richard, you interact with the local folk. I mean, you buy from stalls. You move around this country. When the president speaks about a fast growing economy, a robust economy, which is unstoppable. I mean, from your experience and your, do you relate the two? Do you find a correlation between those two?
Okay, so unstoppability is inevitable. Yeah. For example, if I say I am unstoppable, I mean it. I can only be stopped when I die, but I am unstoppable. Because I grow old every day, I grow older. You can, so that's the sense of unstoppability. That is one. The second thing is, I can tell you that, like a person who has been traveling around this country for a while, I travel much faster. In many parts of this country, I really travel much faster because I see that the roads have improved. I can argue with anyone.
The road network.
I can argue with anyone over that. I can also tell you that the number of trading centers, urbanization, in whatever direction you take of this country,
has improved.
Has certainly
electricity
changed.
supply.
I can tell you that the number of buildings in the Kampala skyline have increased, and Kampala city has grown. I stayed in Nigeria. Those years where they would even ask me to buy land, and I refuse.
Has improved.
So there are those things. That's why I was telling you that when you're telling the story, you tell what you sell and you don't tell what you buy. Then you camouflage. So there are those things, I talk about them. But I also think it is useful to talk about what would have been, what has not been done.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Richard Baguma is a communication expert, veteran journalist, but also a political commentator. We have Jen Nalunga, the executive director for Seatini Uganda, trade and business expert, but also Dr. Gerard Werewanzala. I request that we go for a break. The messages are coming in. I saw a message from Rose, a message from Doma, something. But I'll read those messages when we return from this short break, still interrogating the contents in the State of the Nation address and the ambitious strategy of the NRM government to transform this economy, into a bigger economy in just 10 years. Let's go for a break, and the dialogue will return after a short while.